Welcome back to another episode of Thrift Flips here at Sentimental Salvage and Design. I'm Melissa, and I am going to show you how to make over these canisters. I have a whole set, and I bought them at a thrift store. They were in perfect condition. There's no dents. They're not all rusty and gross inside. I hadn't decided yet whether I was going to work with these labels on them. These are like those 70's canister sets. I think my mom had a set. I don't remember now if they were the Harvest Gold or if they were that avocado green, but anyways. So I took it off of this one. I took the front off of this one because I decided I don't want them on there. Because if you're like me, you no longer use canisters in your kitchen. I don't think that's a thing people really use anymore. So I just started kind of prying these off. They're just, if you look inside, you can see there's just little holes and there's little plastic tabs inside. So I'm just kind of breaking those tabs. And then, because I have washed these already, but underneath this is kind of, you can see you got a little bit of grunge there, which is normal for kitchen things. So we're just going to take these off, and then we will give them a wash. Okay, time for these to get a bath. Okay, so these are all nice and clean now. Krud Kutter to the rescue again. It's really a good product to get rid of that kitchen grime that you get. Anything old and grungy or greasy, it works really well. So if you're a thrift flipper, Krud Kutter is a really good tool to have for cleaning. Okay, so because these have this faux wood grain kind of color on them, I didn't want to have to paint or put decoupage paper in this area because that's where the lid slides on, so there will be wear. And I think adding an extra layer of anything, whether that's paint or, like I said, decoupage paper, it's just going to end up getting kind of scuffed up over time. So even though, I mean, they're not like crazy tight fits, but still. And this little, the knob on the top is plastic and it's already brown. So I wanted to kind of keep with that. So the paper that I chose for these is printer's blocks. So this is a Roycycled Decoupage paper. And I thought that these little canisters would work really good. They could be in an office. They could be in your workshop to hold those little doodads. So I thought this would be the perfect paper for that. It's just kind of all the things, right? So this is what I'm going to use. And I also was unsure whether I was going to paint white underneath, but I think because this paper is already so dark, and with the canisters being that dark wood, I would lose some of these dark letters if I didn't underpaint my tins white. So that's the first step. We're going to underpaint them white. So easy step, but necessary step. So I am going to use DIY Paints White Swan. It's kind of my go-to for this. And it's really thick. So I'm actually going to give it a little spritz of water just to water it down a little bit. and just stir it with my brush. It's good to go. And all these little holes in the front, because that's where those little appliques were attached. I'm not worried about those. At first I was thinking maybe they'll show through the paper, but then I remembered that when the paper dries, it will tighten back up and you won't even notice those there. So. So now I'm going to probably just hit these with the dryer a little bit, and then I'll come back and give them a second coat. And I'm going to use clear patina, and I have my Mister bottle handy. So this is DIY Paints clear patina. I use it quite often for decoupage. Let's get rid of this lump. Sometimes you get in these bottles, these squeeze bottles, that build up in the little spout. I'm gonna mist my paper just so it kind of stretches out and it's easier to apply. And I always forget to have my food wrap ready. Good thing I keep it handy. So this is just plastic food wrap, and I'm just going to use that to smooth that out. So I don't know if you can see, it's nice and smooth. That combined with the misting method, it works perfect. You want to make sure you're getting a good even coat. And I'm going to mist this. I'll mist it on the back this time, might be easier. Any medium that squeezes out. Now this little bit that's hanging over, I'm not going to touch that until it's perfectly dry. And I'll just trim that off using X-Acto knife or a sanding block, actually. Maybe an X-Acto knife, I don't know. perfect. Oh no, one more side. Perfect. So I'm just going to trim this because as it dries, as the paper dries, because I've misted this part, it's going to shrink and pull where I don't want it to. So I'm just going to trim it with the scissors so that it's not going to be so hard on the rest. And just give it a couple stress cuts there just in case. Just double checking, going over. And you can't even see, even now with it being wet, you can't see those holes. So that's a win. That's going to work perfect. Okay, I guess I should seal this up. So I don't want that to go down. I can always touch this up later. Any spots that I feel like I'd missed. Now again, it's going on kind of milky. That's okay, it dries crystal clear, so no worries with that. I have not used this paper before. This is my first time using printer's blocks. These papers come out and when they're released, and I always think, oh, I'm going to use that one, and I'm going to use that one, and I get so excited, and then, you know, life gets in the way, and I don't end up using them until they've been out for, I think Printers Blocks has been out for over a year, and I have not used it yet. Okay, first one's done. Number 2. Okay, so that is all 4 are done. I've just been putting them upside down. I want to check out this first one because it's almost dry. I want to see how things are looking. I think it's looking pretty darn good. And yeah, I was worried about those little holes in the front from where those appliques were. And yeah, you can't even see them. The paper has shrunk back as it's drying and you can't even see it. So I'm going to let these dry completely and then we will come back and trim these up. Okay, so we're nice and dry. And now I'm going to trim this edge and this edge. So I have an X-Acto knife, and these aren't anything fancy. They're from the dollar store. Because sometimes they break nice and sometimes they don't. So you just want it to be super sharp. You want that little tip to be super sharp at least. And then you can go in and just right into this little groove. And you can just cut away using that lip as a guide. And then you can just cut away this extra paper. Not having the right glasses for this part is a little bit brutal. And the same for down here. I'm just going up against that lip. I'm actually wondering if I should leave that. I might just leave that there. I'm going to put that back. I am going to put that back, and just going to use a little bit of clear patina. Oop. Because I kind of got an idea for that. Okay, so that has to dry. But I can work on this one. And I can trim this edge. So you just want to go with your blade right into that kind of edge. This works really good when you have that little lip. You get a nice cut. But then for the rest of it, I'm just going to take a sanding block and we're just going to sand down like we normally do when cleaning up that edge. And it just gives you that perfect edge. If you want the little chrome edge to show, you can go ahead and cut around there if you're working on a set of these or anything similar. But I think it's actually going to be nice with that, just like that. So let's grab a lid and see what it looks like. I think they look really cute. And now it can go either way because there's no, you can set them up. You can set them up this way. Whoops. You can set them up this way or you can set them up this way because there's no front now. There's definitely a back because we have this seam, but there's no front. This part, your paper needs to be dry. Don't try to do this if your paper has not completely dried because it will just tear. And these little nooks and crannies and grooves and stuff are a little bit more, they take longer to dry. So just make sure that they're really dry before you try to trim that away. So these two, I don't really have to do that with because I put the paper a tiny bit higher up on these, which it actually looks better, but I'm just going to take this wet wipe and wipe along the top of that edge because freehanding is freehanding, right? So you end up with it a little bit higher in spots. But basically what I'm wanting to do with this is to just cover up that white from the underpainting. Oh boy. You don't realize how important the right glasses are until you forget them at home. So I'm not being super careful because I can just go in and wipe this back, but I'm only going one side at a time because this is Fusion that I'm using, and you can't reactivate Fusion. Once it's dried, it's dry. It's got that built-in top coat, which is awesome, but so between the two paint lines that I carry here in the store, there's qualities and things about each one that I really like. So I use both. I'm just going to touch up this too. Anywhere there's any kind of issues, this is just cleaning that up. I might have to look at this with the proper glasses on later and see, but I think it's turning out okay. And any little touch-ups, So if you were using a different color paper, you could just use something that would kind of complement, something I think that would be kind of in the shadows of that paper. And that would help disguise any oopses like that. So I think these will work perfect for storing any kind of goodies. They're nice, and I don't think I would use these to store food because they're metal and they do have like that seam down in the bottom. And I don't know, I washed them really good, but it's different if you buy old ceramic canisters. You could totally reuse those as long as they're in good shape with no cracks or anything. But something like this, like that little edge around where the bottom meets the sides, I think that it would absorb or hold biddies. I wouldn't wanna put food in there. I'm gonna lift them. Look how awesome. I love them. They look great. Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for catching this other episode of my crafting escapades here at Sentimental Salvage. And another salvage from a thrift store that just makeover, and now it has more life to live. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope I catch you next time.